And welcome back after a long hiatus. We are back, Clay and Craig, to the CC Football Podcast. We are here with a lot of changing stories since the last time we talked to you guys. Craig, what's up?
Not much, not much. The allergy season is kicking my butt, if you can't tell by my voice. I I've grown up in the Midwest and never really had any real issues. It's my first spring on the East Coast, and man, my eyes, the only reason they're semi okay right now is because I'm on 180 milligrams of Allegra and some prescription grade eye drops that are
Oh
keeping my
wow.
eyes alive. Dude,
That's
been
crazy.
kicking my butt. Yeah. But the good news is allergies come with warm weather, so the weather's been really nice.
Yeah.
But
It's actually supposed to be
excuse
next week here. It's supposed to be 105.
what?
Yeah.
Oh, in Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah, I keep forgetting that you're in Texas and not in Indiana. I mean, you haven't been in
I'm a
Indiana
Texan.
8 years, but 10 years, whatever,
It's been a while.
6 years. Um, yeah, so excuse my congested voice to the listeners. What are we talking about today?
Well, we just had to spontaneously convene for a podcast episode because Craig was blowing up my phone about his favorite player in the world, Trent Alexander-Arnold.
Well,
And
this is yeah, I mean, this is off the back of the Liverpool Arsenal game that just um, got played out a couple hours ago, and I missed this because I was watching without volume, and I think you might have been too, Clay, because you were talking on the phone while this was happening. But allegedly, there was some booing, or more than some booing, when Trent got brought onto the field, and I've been unhappy about the whole saga from a Liverpool fan perspective. Like, I'm not a Liverpool fan, but I've been unhappy with how Liverpool fans have been handling this situation, much the same way that I was unhappy with Spurs fans a few years ago when Kane almost left. He actually didn't even end up leaving that year. So it's been simmering and we've been talking about it, but then today I saw these things about him getting booed live, and then yeah, I was like, all right, spontaneously let's record because I think we gotta. I think you have slightly different opinions than me, so it's good to get both on the record. And I think that there'd be pretty. I think there'd be people that agree with both of us. I mean, like if we look at our fan base of what is, like, I think we're like 2.5 million subscribers or something now. If we like look at that as the base, probably like I would say I'd probably get 1.25. You get 1.25 billion people roughly.
oh, on each side of the
Um,
argument.
yeah, quick math there.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
so. I think that's about the numbers that add up. Yeah.
that way. Yeah, that's what we've been
Yeah,
seeing recently.
the whole Trent thing is interesting because I mean, I guess it's been in the news basically this entire season since it was first reported that he was linked with Madrid and that Madrid had him as their top target, not only at right back but like as a signing overall for their
Uh-huh.
team this upcoming year. And when Real Madrid come knocking, very few people um, can say no to that. And I think a lot of Liverpool fans, me included, we were not sure how to feel about it because at one side, like this is your this is your Liverpool boy, homegrown, born and raised. He's been in the club for over 20 years now through the
hmm
youth academy and everything. Has been in the first team for probably 7 or 8 years now. He's won every trophy possible with this team and has developed into
Not the
controversially
Europa
one of the
League.
best right backs in the world, um, for better or for worse, in some aspects of his game. And we've talked about that before. And it's actually
hmm
funny that you're now coming to his defense when I've accused
I
you of being one of his biggest haters
Yeah.
in the
Oh yeah, that's
past.
why I tried to tell you. I every time I was like I've always liked Trent. If I noticed some defensive frailties and called him out, that doesn't mean that I didn't like him. And it's like it's the same way I would call out any other frailties of any other player. But I always liked him. I always backed him. I always said too that talked about him like playing in midfield and stuff because if my biggest problem with him was defensive stuff, I always said how he's just playing in the wrong era. And like if he was playing 15, 20 years ago, he would have been like David Beckham. Although I mean, he's making a pretty good legacy for himself, like either way. But I mean, he was born to be a right midfielder.
Yeah.
Um, anyways, that's neither here nor there. But yeah, continue with your point.
No, I was just I've had enough time to develop my own opinion because it's not like we got blindsided by this news at this point that he's leaving
Yeah,
and going to Madrid. But and I think I've this has become clear to you too, is that my opinion on his departure, I've like swayed on both sides of the aisle. And I've at first I was like, oh no, like screw him, like why would he ever leave? And then I was like, actually no, maybe I like want to be more positive and focus on the things that he has contributed to the club and the amount of time and amount of performances that he's helped us and trophies he's helped us win. Um, due to his brilliant performances and the amount of time he's spent here, which in this day and age is pretty unprecedented. How a player staying at one club for this long,
yeah.
and now I'm kind of like more in the middle of both of those opinions. I know that you're on the opinion, you can say it later, but you're on the side that like, oh, we should just applaud him and let him go. I can see that, and I would like to focus on that, but it doesn't from a Liverpool supporter fan point or viewpoint doesn't sit well with me that like apparently he was secretly talking to Madrid for not only the time that like it was first reported. He's been in contacts with them for over a year and a half, 2 years or so. And this has been they've been planting the seeds to him. I don't think it sits well to me that like Madrid have the amount of power over players so they can just convince them to, hey, if you run out your contract, we can sign you. Like we can't sign you and pay the fee, but if you run out your contract, I'll sign you as a free agent. They did the same thing with Mbappe just last year, where they got him on a free, you know? And I think that might be kind of the way that they're going to be able to lure talented players away for no transfer fee. And that's the other thing
Hmm.
is that like I know that the finances really in the end of the day won't be that big of a it's not that big of a deal to me. I think Liverpool, I mean, compared to every other English club or most other English clubs, we're like in the 99th percentile of in terms of wealth and not only in England but in the world. But the fact that he like it seems like he kind of went behind our backs and had this move orchestrated and didn't confirm it for a long time because I think he was afraid of how the supporters were going to respond, and we're kind of seeing that the dark side of that now. I'm not saying that I definitely don't support the people online who are like abusing him and calling him a
And in
snake and all that
person,
stuff.
and in person. That's the reason for this call. It's not just online anymore.
Well, I was gonna say, I mean, like booing somebody in person is a lot different, I think, than hiding behind your screen and like just typing it in his Twitter mentions. But
But which one's worse?
I don't know.
I think it's just I don't know which one you're applying is worse. I don't think they're any different, but booing in person I think is a lot worse.
Well, it's more personal for sure.
Yeah.
Um,
And it
I
also shows that it's not just like some 11-year-old kids on
Well, yeah,
Twitter.
because that's what I had claimed before. Like when you were saying, like, oh, these Liverpool fans online are like reacting horribly, and I was saying that that's not the people online. I still do stand by this. Like for any sort of group or whatever, like the people on that you see online that represent any group or viewpoint, like those aren't the people that represent the majority of uh the members of that whatever group we're talking about. In this case, the Liverpool
Mhm.
fans. I was claiming that they didn't uh, represent most Liverpool fans. I seem to be wrong in this in this
Yeah.
case, um, and I'm just not sure like what he could have expected to like happen.
Of this game,
Yeah,
he has it like Trent or Slot or just
no
Trent.
Trent.
Yeah. Well, So I guess let's just take a step back, right? For my and you know how I am. Ideally, I would have I would have probably liked to sit down and plan out a nice structured because this is nice structured argument because this is something that I've not about Trent, it's not about Liverpool fans particularly. You know, I've had this opinion about football in general, like players being able to like do what's best for their career, and I probably would have liked some should have taken some time to lay it all out and come to this prepared, but I decided to dive into this spontaneously. So I'll do my best to structure my thoughts, right? But it starts with the perspective that the expectations of how a football player treats or like how a football player acts are just completely different and disproportionate to the expectations for how the clubs act towards players, right? That's kind of the base starting point. For example, if let's say so Trent's doing well, he's playing well at Liverpool. If by the way he stopped playing well or hadn't, started to get worse, he would be and could be rightly sold, dropped. The fans would could stop supporting him. You see this with players all the time, right? At all clubs. And that's just part of football. That's how it goes. He's getting love, loyalty, money, whatever, contracts in return for what he's given to the club. They're not just giving it to him for free. It's a transactional thing. But even if he continued playing at a really good level, if for some reason let's call him like the modern day Cafu became available, right? At right back. I don't know who that is, but let's just say a player who is just superior than Trent at right back became available through Liverpool's academy or through the transfer market, right? Liverpool would have no hesitation playing that player over Trent, which would obviously be to Trent's like would not help Trent's career, right? And he would have to probably go find a different club where he would be benched. The fans would support that decision, rightly so. It's a competitive sport. You need to have the best player playing at every position, right? And then he would have to figure out on his own without any regard for how loyal he's been to you, for what he's given to the club, the fact that he was one of the building blocks of Liverpool becoming a successful club again in the Premier League. Um, Much the same way, it's not any different than Trent being at a club, to your point, that is successful, and he has been able to do really well at Liverpool. It's not like Liverpool aren't winning trophies, they're doing really well. But if Real Madrid come in, and it doesn't matter what my opinion is, what your opinion is, in general, most players probably do think of Real Madrid as a step up. It doesn't matter if they do or not. All that matters is what Trent thinks. If Trent thinks that Real Madrid is a step up for his career or just for whatever he wants for his personal reasons, he should be able to then go to Real Madrid and do that without facing any backlash, as long as it's not done in malice, right? And we'll get to the talk about the contracts and stuff in a second. I'm just more so talking about the expectations now of players. There's this weird expectation for Harry Kane to stay loyal, whatever that means to Spurs, when the only reason he receives what he's receiving from the club and from fans is because he's playing well. If another player became available that was better, or if he started playing worse, that all disappears. So if he has an opportunity for his career that makes Spurs, or in this case Liverpool, or whatever seem like the worst option, they should be able to take it. They only get one career. They only get one chance at doing what they want to do, that they worked their whole life to do. If he's worked his whole life to play whatever at Real Madrid, I'm not saying that he has. I know that he was talking about being captain and stuff. So I'm not saying it's his lifelong dream to play for Real Madrid. But this is what he's worked his whole life for. He only gets one chance to do it. Let him do what he pleases, as long as he, and be different if he's going to a direct rival, right? Like Peter Schmeichel went from Manchester United to Manchester City. Um, and obviously the fans didn't like that. But now, years later, Schmeichel is still a
Van
United
Persie.
legend. It's kind of been, yeah, Van Persie from Arsenal to United, right? It'd be one thing if he's doing that, and I'd maybe have slightly more understanding, because then he's like completely basically saying to the fans, he's putting his own personal wants at a level where he's putting the fans wants like way, way, way lower, which I don't think the fans wants should be anywhere in the picture, but I could understand why that would be more hurtful. But he's not doing anything malicious. He's going to a different league, the biggest club in history in the world, it's a fantastic opportunity that anybody would take and anybody should take. Um, so that's my first point. I'll let you respond to that, or like let's just discuss that, and then we'll talk about like the contract
Okay.
situation later.
I think that yeah, I guess I can see what you're saying and you articulate it very well. I don't know if like I don't know if it's that transactional as you said it was. Basically like, oh, you play
Okay.
well, you get loved, and then you get paid, and then you open up doors to go somewhere else. Like I know that the business is very cutthroat. I don't think that like let's say I mean we have seen Trent have poor performances and stuff and like in the short term he will get criticized and stuff, but in the long term he would have and any player in the long term would end up still being loved by the club. I think a lot of it is the fact that you know kind of like Kane, like these players who like come through the academy and then become one of, if not the best player on their team. And I guess in Trent's case, not Kane's case, like helping their team fight for trophies consistently. Sorry, to just unneeded Spurs.
Yeah, random stray at Spurs. This is
Yeah. But like those type of players are very, very rare that they come through the academy and then they are become instrumental in their team's success and all this stuff, right? Usually, a lot of these players are coming from smaller leagues and smaller clubs and they're bought for a smaller amount of money and then they grow their value and they get sold on. I think that's a lot different. Whether or not that's fair to expect something different because of where they were born or, what um how they joined the club and stuff, that's up to you. But I think that because of the fact that he was born in Liverpool, grew up in Liverpool, grew up at the club for those reasons, and not only did is that the case, but he also like said in interviews that his dream is to stay a Liverpool player forever. His dream is to be a captain, become a legend of the club. He's saying all these things, and then you can just so you, from a fan's perspective, get lured into the fact that this player is so loyal, you know, and then
hmm
it kind of feels like a stab in the back when they're like, yeah, I'm loyal, but only to a certain extent.
Yeah, and I think that's when like the that's why like the second part of my point comes into place, right? Is that this at the end of the day, fortunately or unfortunately, football is not the way it's run right now. It's not a relationship between the player and the fans. There's a third party involved, which is the club, right? And actually, like the fans aren't even really involved as far as like the actual business decisions of who's staying, who's going, contracts, XYZ. So it's one. I get what you're saying, and it's one thing if it's like if it was just Trent and the fans were the ones making the decision based on we've been loyal to you. You know we're gonna like keep you at the club. We're gonna do this, that, and the other for any player, not just for Trent. And then players could reciprocate. But that's not how it works. The clubs, the clubs are the ones making the decisions. Fans
Yeah,
just
but
provide
like in this,
support.
I know what you're saying, but like in this case, the club was trying to be loyal to him. They offered him more money than Madrid, and they were going to offer him like top
That's not the
salary.
point. That's not the point because that's not the again, that's not the club being loyal to a player. That's just the club trying to make sure that they have their best player there, right? What I'm saying is that, and I think this is 100% true for Liverpool and for any other club because it should be, is that if a better player became available at any point and it wouldn't like it was reasonable for Liverpool to obtain that player financially or through the academy, like if Connor Bradley turned into the next Cafu, essentially, right? That player would play over Trent. And that's how it should be. There's no like false sense of loyalty where like, okay, we're keeping you around. That's the whole reason, by the way. And maybe this starts getting to the contract thing, right? The reason the reason clubs are giving players contracts and figure out this whole contract situation is also for them, right? To protect the club as well. So it's like, okay, we have this player for XYZ, but if we're going to lose him, then we're at least going to get money for him, right? It's not just going to be like, oh, we keep him and then he can leave whenever he wants. So it's a two-way street. And the club wouldn't hesitate because they can't. You have to be cold-blooded. They wouldn't hesitate to play a better player over Trent. So that's what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about the club not being loyal to him right now. The and if the club did play a better player over Trent, that still wouldn't mean that the club is being disloyal to him. That's the business of
I think that's
football.
fair, but that's also coming from that's the same mindset of like no one's bigger than the club. Everyone says that across multiple clubs, like no player, singular player is ever going to define a club,
Correct.
you know?
Correct. So surely you see the hypocrisy in expecting a player having these expectations, and not just Trent, of any player, right? To say, hey, you should be, if you're getting loyalty from the fans and you're getting contract from a club, you should be willing to just stay there, right? As long and you're winning trophies, and it doesn't matter if another club comes along that you think is better or that you'd rather play for, even if it's just like a city you'd rather live in, which is still, by the way, a perfectly fine reason to move. This is their life and their career. It doesn't matter, and none of that matters, right? Because you have to stay loyal to the club, but at the same time, realize that no player is ever going to be bigger than the club. So at any second, this whole thing could be taken away from you. One player that's better than you, one injury, one whatever, like a year and a half of like really bad performances or something, and all of a sudden you're gone. So you're expected to do all this, but it could disappear in a millisecond. Like surely you're seeing like the
No,
hypocrisy.
I do understand it, but I just think that it's a little bit, you're just like looking at it in terms of like without any emotion involved in like, yeah, what you're
Yeah,
saying, it does boil down to that. But like I'm saying, Trent was, or Trent is entering his prime right now. He is only 25. He's entering his prime. He has been developing at
he's
the
only
club for so
25.
long.
Jeez.
Yeah. I think he's 25 or maybe 26. But either way, he's entering his prime right now. And
Okay.
it's not like the club aren't putting him in positions to further his own legacy. I would argue, oh, he's 26 now. I would argue that it would be to win the Premier League at Liverpool is more of an accomplishment than to win the La Liga at Madrid just because of the
It doesn't matter
history of
though.
it and stuff. What?
That's your opinion. That's like you can't tell Trent. Going back to like what you were saying, like
That's
what people
totally
have been.
fine, but I can't tell him that. I can believe it and I can think that he's making the wrong choice. And if what you're saying is true, then it means that Trent values playing for Madrid more than Liverpool, which is a slap in the face to Liverpool, right? Or B,
Sure.
which would which means that he's going back on his like previous statements of how he wants to be playing for the club for forever and all this, be a legend and all these things, and then suddenly
Hmm.
does a 180 and is like, actually, I want to play for this club more. Or B wants to live in Madrid more than Liverpool, which me personally, I can see why he thinks that, but like for the
I mean,
people,
that's probably not the case, but yeah,
you know what I'm saying though, like it's like no matter how you boil it down to it, if it's like, okay, he wants to play for Madrid more than he wants to play for Liverpool for whatever reason. Whether that's the money,
correct,
it's not the money, but
100%.
like whether that's his career, whether he wants a new
Legacy,
challenge,
it's the
whether
biggest
it's just
club in the world.
the history of Madrid, or whether it's the fact that he had one of his best friends plays for Madrid with Jude Bellingham. Um,
Courtois.
but
Oh,
no matter which way you boil it down, it's like whatever the reason is the fact that it hurts the Liverpool fans because he was telling them and us that he wanted to stay here forever. He loves the club, loves the city, and then his actions are not coinciding with those words.
yeah. I think that like, and that's what I'm saying. There's especially if he's been talking about, oh, I want to stay and be club captain. I want to blah 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 for a
And to be
while.
fair to him, he
I
hasn't said that in a while, maybe because of the fact that he knew that this was a possibility. But like, there are interviews of him when was breaking into the first team of him saying that and whatever.
Yeah, and I understand why fans again. This is not about fans' feelings, right? And I know that there was like the other video you were sending, and there's been all this talk this week about don't tell Liverpool fans how their should be feeling, etc. This is not about how fans feel. Fans are more than welcome, or like no one can control how fans feel, how anyone else feels, but you can control how you act externally. You can feel betrayed, you can feel disappointed, you can feel however you want to feel. But there does need to be a certain level, and I know you're accusing me of taking the emotion out of it, but that's the problem is like the emotion is taken out of it when it comes to the clubs dealing with the players and how players' careers progress, right? There's no emotion involved, and it can't be. It has to be ruthless. So I am taking the
I think it
emotion
is
out of it a
ruthless,
little
but
bit.
the clubs still do celebrate the players like that exit well. Like you look at Firmino last year, he left on a free, and it was very, very positive and amicable. And the club celebrated him, but both the fans and the club celebrated him and still love him as one of the best players in the Klopp era.
Right. I'm saying more so like if a club has to make a tough decision about a player or like go for the club, like emotion can't be taken into account. And if you're, by the way, if you're whatever, a director of football or manager or whatever of a club, and you're letting emotions play too much into your decisions. I mean, Sir Alex Ferguson didn't win 13 Premier League titles by letting emotions play into his decisions, right? And he, by the way, he alienated some superstar players over the course of his career because he made hard decisions when he had to make hard decisions. David Beckham, it's almost funny. We're always talking about how people want to go to Real Madrid. He didn't. Like he wanted to stay at Manchester United, but Ferguson, for all these other reasons that we don't have to talk about in this podcast, decided it wasn't the best decision anymore. And Beckham was one of the best players in the world at the time. My point of all this is that managers and clubs are making these decisions without emotion, the best ones, and they should be making those decisions without emotion. So yeah, I am taking emotion out of it because that's how I think that we should evaluate the players' decisions too. Is like you can feel betrayed, you can feel disappointed by it, but at the same time understand that if they one-way relationships don't work in this world where you put in everything. And by the way, speaking as like someone who I mean I work in consulting, I work in the corporate world, all my friends from business school work in corporate world, everyone's going through like we're a couple years in and out of college and people are talking about job switches and stuff like that. And this isn't like a football thing, right? It's an overall mentality that you see kind of everywhere where it's like people will have these feelings of like, oh, whatever, like, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and I gotta stay loyal. But then especially when the economy turns down or things go, you see employers, whether it's corporate employers or whether it's football employers and stuff, right? They can pull the plug at any time, and that's a bit of a loose analogy, but the you get the point. So that's my point about the taking the emotion out of it. Not love, like sure they'll celebrate players like Firmino when they leave, but if they had to make a cold decision about Trent, they would make it. Just like just like Sir Alex Ferguson made him all these years, just like United have made him, just like any other club have, just like City make him. By the way, you see City bring in the reason they've been so successful is because Pep is constantly bringing in players that can compete at the same spots where he already has world class players, and sometimes those players outperform, and then they're like, "Oh, they're like, oh, sorry, your time's up," right? Um, Anywho, the last thing I wanted to mention is the contract situation, and we've already kind of touched on it because I think that's probably the most I can kind of understand where it's like, oh, I think that sure, as a Liverpool fan, some Liverpool fans might say, sure, you know what? I would have been happy for him to leave and do like follow his career, but it seems like he like planned this kind of like in this sly manner and didn't, ran down his contract. To which, honestly, I just don't understand what else he was supposed to do. Like
Well,
that's
there are lots of other examples of players who sign new contracts with release clauses in them, knowing that the release clause will get triggered. Like with the already an agreement, like, hey, I'm going to sign this contract. You're going to have to pay my 40 million release clause, just so to ensure that the club doesn't get left with nothing.
wait, I don't get it though.
Like players will sign a new contract with the release clause built in, but they already have at their current club, and then they already have an arrangement with another club that says that hey, your guys are gonna trigger my release clause after I sign this contract with them.
Sure, but then he signed himself up for like that nothing has to happen, right? Like the release cost doesn't have to be paid.
Well, no, I'm
by
saying that
Real Madrid or by
this
any other
happens with
club.
an agreement already in place. This is like a relatively common thing for it to happen. I saw a thing in the news about it. I forget who it was, but someone was about to do that themselves. Um,
And then what? And then so Real Madrid would agree to say, hey, yeah, we can probably get you for a free in a year, but instead we're going to sign a paper with you promising you that we'll
well,
pay
yeah,
$100 million
the
for
receiving
you.
club isn't that happy about it, but the player and the player is happy because he's getting the move he wants, and then the I guess the departing club is happy because they got a fee for him.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I'm surprised.
a lot of times the fee isn't even something that's like really indicative of their actual transfer value, but it's more than zero, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised. I don't know. I'd have to look into it to like if Real Madrid actually would have been like, are they what's the word? Are they like contractually obligated
Well,
to pay the release
I
clause?
don't know. I don't know like how and like the legal terms of it is, but it's like uh
Because it still seems like it's a bit risky, right? To sign a long-term contract, because all contracts nowadays are long-term. And then he can't go to Madrid if they decide again, if they decide he's not worth that much money or something changes, he can't go. And if he wants to leave Liverpool, another club can't come in and buy him because now he's signed this like 5, 6 year contract. So I don't know. I'd have to look into like some of the financial exceptions that you're talking about, or like the I don't know, behind the back methods that I'm probably not as familiar with. But just from a base level, it's a bit it's just a bit confusing as to what he's expected to do. Because like again, you look at the corporate world, right? Like I've had friends at companies where let's say even at the same company, right, where they want to switch from one group to another group, right? The
mhm.
same company, right?
Yep.
And right, and that can be a whole landmine of red flags and bureaucracy and red tape, and it's not, and there might be the best relationships on both sides, but it's not as easy as just being 100% transparent up front and saying, oh yeah, by the way, I want to leave and go to this group, right? There has to be like a certain level of relationship management. You can't reveal stuff until it's the right time because you have to make sure that your thing's actually going to work out, and you're not going to be left with neither team being on your side because on the one hand you haven't agreed anything, and on the other hand, because you're trying to be so transparent and open, you've said too early that you're leaving or doing something, and then you have no contract and no club, or then you have no group and no group, and you're left without a job or you're left without something. So
Yeah.
like I just I'm
I mean
not saying
just
that he did it 100% the right way, but just understand that it's surely give him a little bit of leeway and say acknowledge that it's a tricky situation. That he has nothing against Liverpool or Liverpool fans.
I
He
don't think
wouldn't go
you
out of
don't
his
know that.
way.
I mean, I don't think he does, but you can't say that definitively.
Okay, maybe I can't say anything definitively, but if you were to bet all your money, and I think anyone in the world, you had to put like a certain percentage of your money on one or the other. I'm putting 99.99% of my money on the fact that he's not intentionally trying to screw Liverpool over, and 1% of my money that he
I don't
potentially
think
or
that
quite.
I don't think that's one of his main motives, but I think that hurting Liverpool isn't one of his main, or sorry, not hurting the club is not one of his main motives either, because that might be too many negatives, but like keeping the
No,
club,
but that's
you get what I'm saying though, right? Like he's not prioritizing the club or the club's well-being with the way he went about the transfer. And I just actually looked up a example was in 2018 Griezmann wanted to move
mhm.
from Atleti to Barca, which we all know turned out really well.
Yeah, that went well.
Um,
Yeah.
so what happened was he ended up signing a new contract at Atleti with a 200 million euro release clause, but then it lowered to 120 the next transfer window, and he had I guess signed it with the understanding with Barca that they would trigger it once the release clause is lowered the next window.
Hmm.
So something like that could be done, and I'm sure if I looked a little bit harder, I could find some more examples for you. But um, I'm not even saying that he needed to sign a 120 million release clause. Like to me, like it's not anything about the money. It's more about the fact that he apparently was talking to Madrid for a year or two before and had these thoughts a year or two before, and it took him until a month before the his contract ran out to finally announce that or even confirm that fact that he was even thinking about leaving. Like the club sheltered him a lot in interviews this year because they knew there was going to be lots of questions about his contract and stuff, and they didn't really give him very much media availability for the media to ask him the questions because they knew the club knew that what was going to be asked, and maybe they knew what his answer was already before we did, and they just didn't want the fans to be distracted and didn't want to cause a big distraction outside the locker room, you know. I don't know. It's just I like I said, I'm not sure still where I fall in the camp. I don't think that I'm 100% on your side because I don't think that like the I would like to believe that the players, for better or for worse, because I do see what you're saying. I acknowledge the fact that like the clubs are very ruthless and they should be ruthless in terms of the recruiting and uh, determining who plays and who doesn't. But on the same side of it, I would like to think that all of these players do have a connection, maybe not to the club in terms of like Michael Edwards and the front office, but they have a connection to the workers of the club, like the people they interact with every day, and a connection to the fans who cheer them on through everything, you know. And for that perspective, like the way that Trent handled the whole situation and the fact that he's leaving, it just makes me, I guess it just makes me kind of sad because I felt like we're missing out on something that would have been a truly exceptional story if he would have stayed at Liverpool his entire career.
Yeah, I think that's a good summary, and I think that we have what a minute left on the clock. I think that it's we didn't even talk about the main. We basically talked mostly about whether what he's doing is okay or not, which I think that's not even the point. Like that's kind of the gray area where you can see both sides. The my main point, the reason I wanted to do this whole meeting is like, is the reaction justified, not the feelings. Everyone's justified to feel how they want to feel about whether it's okay or not. But he surely doesn't deserve, in my opinion, the kind of abuse and hate that he's getting. But
Yeah,
I don't know.
we can take a quick commercial break and hit on that quickly right after this.
All right, cool. Ooh, welcome back from commercial break. What ads did we throw in there this time, Clay?
I don't know. The sponsors, I think our legal team was working with the sponsors to because they were fighting over our ads, our ad time. So
Mm, yeah,
we'll have to
yeah,
listen and see what they ended up putting in there, what our producers put in there.
yeah. Okay, yeah. They're in a long
I
queue
think it
for
was
thank you
there's an up and
sponsors to
coming
get there.
podcast called Tottenham Talk that was trying to get some airtime. So
Oh yeah, yeah. Well, I'm not even sure they need it because they're just. I mean, they're good. They're doing so well on their own, anyways. They're just. I don't even know that they need the extra sponsorship,
yeah, I know.
but but I'm glad to know that they were looking to help us out, give us some cash when we need it. Thanks, Tottenham Talk.
Well, during our break, I had some time to look up an example or a few examples of the predetermined release clause
Mm,
that we had been talking about earlier. And I'm not even saying that Trent should have done this, but this would have been a way to at least soften the blow to Liverpool fans. But the first example was Holland. Holland had the his release clause with when he signed with Dortmund, he had negotiated a release clause that wouldn't become active until I think a year or two into his contract, and then before that clause had even become active, he had already agreed with City um, for them to, I guess, conditionally trigger the contract release
mm.
clause. Christopher Nkunku, when he moved to Chelsea, kind of did something very similar. I don't know if you remember that whole saga.
Huh?
Huh? Why are you
No,
laughing?
yeah, I remember this. It's just Nkunku at Chelsea. It's just so crazy to hear that because I mean we barely got to see him at Chelsea.
Yeah.
Um, but sorry, that's neither here nor there.
And then the last one, the last example is outside of the Prem is Fabian Ruiz when he left
Mm,
Napoli. Um, so there's a few examples. or actually when he left Betis and went to Napoli.
Went to Napoli. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
Yeah. So what's the but like so what's he supposed to do? And I'm not saying that he did try it, right? But if he does try it or like ask for it, and Madrid are not willing, then what's he supposed to do?
well, I'm not really sure what at that point what you're supposed to do, but I mean, if that's
I'm saying we
assuming he
don't know.
even
We don't know,
asks,
right?
we don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. Like we don't know that Madrid was even open to doing something like this. And I get it. Like maybe but he probably didn't even ask, but like I think that we need to draw a distinction. This goes back to like, when we see there's some people do like some really are great sportsmen in that they have a good sportsmanship personality, not that they're athletic. Um, and they'll do stuff that's really great, and we'll applaud them for it. And you know that I'm I'm probably slightly less cold-blooded when it comes to some of this stuff. Like I enjoy seeing those sort of sportsmanship things, right? So I'm be the first to applaud them. But then there's situations where people don't do things or like just I need to think of a good example, but we've talked about this on the podcast before. There's examples of when people will just do the normal thing, right? Like won't go out of their way to be extra sportsmanlike, and then they get hated on, right? Which like we need to draw a distinction between people doing something that's really applauding people who do something that's going above and beyond versus if people don't do that, understanding that that action would have been above and beyond and that doesn't deserve them to be hated. If that makes any sense.
It does make sense, and we can segue this into how Trent was received by the fans today, um, and whether or not the fans were acting very sportsmanlike or not.
Yeah. Yeah. I just I don't know. I just don't get it, right? And it's I know I get it, right? I get the whole, hey, you're not a Liverpool supporter, don't tell us how to feel, don't tell us and I wouldn't tell you how to feel. Like I'm trying to make that very clear that I'm not trying to tell anyone how to feel or not feel. I just it just saddens me. Even like I shouldn't be invested in this. I'm a United fan, right? But I'm invested because it is a beautiful thing when a player comes up through a club, forms this relationship, is a building block of a club's success and one of the most important periods in modern history for this club. And it saddens me, even as a United fan, to see the relationship break over something that's just business as usual. And it's just a player trying to do what's in his mind, whether we think it is or not, what's best for him, for his career, for his life. In some cases, like this, maybe even for his family. Probably not this case. Um, right? It just saddens me that that relationship and the whole storyline can break so easily, and just on one side, right? Like I, again, you never know for sure, but I'm very confident that Trent would love to leave Liverpool and go to Real Madrid and still love the fans and come back and whatever score a goal and not celebrate and be like that type of relationship and that type of player and then 10 years down the line, 20 years down the line he retires and it's all good and it's like, oh, he was a legend for us, he did well, and then he went to Madrid and become one of the, like Ronaldo at United, right? And he went to Real Madrid and became one of the greatest players in the world or blah 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 blah. For me, I would love to see that, and I think that it's so easy for that to happen in my head, and it just saddens me that it's not happening. So
Yeah.
it's one thing about feeling betrayed, and it's another thing about like intentionally going out. Like I don't see how we come back from this. Like if Liverpool fans are going to act this way and boo him, whether it's online or now even in person, like I don't see that there's any way back, at least in the short term, for the relationship to be good again. Like I think it could have been good if
Well, the good
Liverpool
news
fans
is
had
it
been
doesn't really
disappointed.
need to be that good for the foreseeable future because he'll be in Spain. But
Yeah,
uh,
but I'm saying that's the beautiful part when like a player leaves and it's still on good terms with this club and you can tell that he like,
yeah, I agree. And I honestly, I'm not a big fan of them booing him, to be honest. I wasn't a
yeah,
fan of them abusing him online. I'm not a fan of them booing him. Uh, if for
in
anything
person.
else, it's just like optics wise. Now Liverpool fans were being the bitter ex-girlfriend, you know.
Yeah.
If we were to applaud him and say thank you, bye, I think that we would have gained a lot of respect from other
Everyone.
outside fan bases because I think most people, at least if, even if you can say that he's well within his right to leave, you can at least see the why Liverpool fans would be so sad for him to leave, even if you support him making his own choice to go to Madrid and stuff. I think most people can empathize in the fact that like he meant more than a normal player does to any club, you know.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep.
but the way that they're acting now is not really, I don't know. It's just not the way I would have chosen for us to do it. But I'm just one
Yeah.
of millions, so yeah.
That's true. Yep. Final example I was thinking of during the commercial break about, how players are expected to be one way and then not reciprocated. David De Gea at Manchester United, right? I mean, you can't ask for. I mean, he did almost go to Madrid, and again, nothing wrong with that. And United, I don't know, there were some botched fax printer machine, whatever that didn't go through at the last minute.
Watch fax
Yeah,
machine.
but besides that, he basically played. He won a title at the very start, and he basically played for United his majority of his career during United's worst 10 years in recent history. And he, for a lot of those seasons, carried the club single-handedly on his back, right? I mean, what he did was incredible at United. We don't need to talk about that. But what we do need to talk about is, I mean, that shows a ridiculous level. And he was always truly committed and passionate. Like, again, even though he was happy to go to Madrid because that was his dream. When he was playing for the club, even after that, he was one of the, I mean, he was probably an epitome of really playing for the badge, right? And then all it took at the end was like, a, an iffy season or a couple iffy seasons, and which, in my opinion, weren't even that bad. And fans turned on him like this. Not all fans, but a good enough portion of fans turned on him like this. And most importantly, how did his career end? Just randomly, he's just like we brought in Onana. He didn't even get to he didn't have like a proper goodbye game. He didn't have anything. Like a player of that level should not only have a moment where he's subbed on or subbed off, and 80,000 people at Old Trafford are applauding and crying and like thanking him for everything he's done, but probably a testimonial after that because that's what he deserves. He was just Onana brought in. He never got to play a proper last game for the club, and next thing you know, he was just gone. And then he went and did his own thing for a couple of years, and now he's doing great at Fiorentina. I mean, one of the saddest. And you can talk about like maybe Liverpool's better than United, right? I'm not, probably is, but that's just how football works. So that's what I'm saying is like I'm going back to the earlier point of the conversation. I just thought about the hair as an example, but like players
Mhm.
can give everything because they want to act the way that fans want them to act, and then for what at the end still be it just blows up in their face.
Yeah. I mean,
So it's harder decision than fans make it out to seem to stay loyal. It really so which is why we should really like the players like Totti and stuff like that. They deserve all the credit and like wow, it's because it's tough. It's a hard decision to be loyal. It's not easy to just be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna sign my life away and stay here, regardless of what else I could do for my career and legacy and
yeah.
family and whatever.
Yeah. I mean, bringing it back to Liverpool, I just think like, you'll never walk alone. The anthem of the club, the motto, the song that, I got emotional when they sang You'll Never Walk Alone at the end of the season and all the fans were singing it and then the players were lined up in front of the fans like that is like to me the phrase that I thought defined Liverpool. I still do think it does, but the actions of the fans by booing him, by booing Trent, and kind of like just turning on him on a dime doesn't really support that notion that you'll never walk alone, which to me means that like no matter where you are, we'll still support you, no matter what your performances are or whatever, we'll still support you, and no matter you know what decisions you make for your career, we should support you, especially as someone who has given the club so much. Um,
Yeah.
I think that it's a little hypocritical, I guess, of the fans to. saying you'll never walk alone at the beginning of the game, and then when Trent gets subbed on 70 minutes later,
boo him.
boo him, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I agree. But I guess the conclusion of this whole conversation is just that it's hard on both sides, on all sides. Like it's tricky for players in these situations. It's tricky for clubs as much as their clubs are ruthless too. These situations are probably tricky for them too, even if they try to do the right thing. And it's definitely tricky for fans. And we know Liverpool fans are about as passionate as they come when it comes to Premier League fans. Like they, invest a lot in the club and in the players. And so I get it. I get it. But, like
Yeah,
you said, I disagree with the actions, not with the feelings.
and so do I. But I don't disagree with the sentiment of being hurt, and I just wish that they would
Yeah.
have uh voiced it differently. I don't know how they could have done that. I mean, it's really either you cheer or you boo. And then like it probably should be somewhere in between, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, it could have been just like a regular reception, just
Yeah,
like
but it was never going to be like that.
just yeah.
Really, I
Yeah,
mean,
that's what I'm
to
saying.
be honest, I was surprised. I was reading or I was watching Slot's post-game press conference. So I was like, why did he even like decide to sub on Trent? He must have known that something was going to happen, and it would. I mean, probably based off the reaction that he knew happened, that everyone knew happened, it was probably going to be a negative reception. I was surprised that he put Trent in that situation, and I'm surprised that he gave the fans the opportunity to do that, you know.
Hmm.
But he was basically saying he's like, my job is to win games, and I thought that Trent gave us the best chance to win this game, so I subbed him on. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, which is probably true. I mean, now it's not the most important game of the season to be winning, but I mean, yeah, if this was like pre-title, that probably was, the tactically best
oh, he would
decision,
have
I would
started
assume.
probably.
That's true.
He would have started. But the
That,
other thing is like, okay, I think we've kind of settled the Trent
yeah, yeah.
discussion. Uh, your your point is clear. I'm still deciding how I'm going to feel, and honestly, it's going to take some time for me to decide whether how I feel about Trent. Maybe it might even take until I see him play in the Real Madrid white and be like, wow,
Los Blancos.
that's pretty cool, or like, wow, that sucks. I think he should be playing in
Yeah.
red. I don't know, but I do want to applaud because we haven't had a podcast since Liverpool clinched the title. I do want to acknowledge
Oh yeah.
the great season that they've had, and the fact that Slot came in his first year. I know that I mean, most managers come in like usually when a manager leaves is because the team's not doing as well as they should be doing, and so when a new
Mhm.
manager comes in, they have more of a project to build up and then hopefully become successful. That wasn't the case for Slot. Um, he would walked into a great situation, but it still is impressive to come in and win a league you've never coached in before, in such dominant fashion too. Which really, if you look at the points and stuff, like that's more because of the fact that the other contenders didn't really show up this year. But it's still like if
Yeah.
Liverpool definitely overachieved what most people thought, even me, myself included. I'm interested to go back and to see where I predicted them at the beginning of the year, but I think I predicted them probably in third place, and I would have been
Yeah.
happy. I would have been probably happy with that.
I think you might have given him second, but we'll have to go. We'll do our end of season recap and see how we did
Yeah, we should do that
on
because
our
I'm interested to
predictions.
see where I predicted them. Because even I like I didn't predict us to win the league. No, none of the pundits did. Um, but
Yeah,
wow, what a season! Um, what a great. I mean, Salah single-handedly, not single-handedly, but Salah having one of the best Premier League seasons ever statistically is really, really cool
maybe
to
the
watch.
best.
Yeah. Um, although he has slowed down since for the last few weeks, but it's okay. The work is done.
I think he'll be okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think him and Liverpool will be okay. Yeah, I mean, yeah, applaud Liverpool as a club, obviously, but applaud the players. 100% applaud Slot. I think. I mean, and I've probably gone on record, or maybe not on record, but I've been texting and saying things all season where like I'm not. I I'm that I've been like I'm not as in awe of this Liverpool team as I've been in like past title contenders, like city contenders. I've said all that stuff, but at the end of the day, to come in your first season, regardless of how you do it, and regardless of how much you all Craig Castellino sitting in wherever, right? Um, to come in your first season, you talk about like it wasn't a full project like it is the other clubs. It doesn't matter. That doesn't matter, right? Pep is not coming in. He came in. He's not coming into a new team. He's been there at the same team that just won, what is it, four league titles in a row and won the treble recently, right? Pretty much the same team. And then obviously one big injury this year, and he wasn't able to do it. So coming into a team that's sure that it was set up, but still didn't win anything the last year, and being able to take it to the Premier League title by whatever it's going to end up being, 15 points or more. Um, I think that deserves a lot of credit. Um, and yeah, I think what Salah's just done. Yeah, I don't think we haven't done a lot of podcasts this year, so we haven't gotten a chance to talk about it. But I mean, it's up there with one of the greatest ever Premier League seasons, even with a slow couple weeks. And even if he doesn't do anything for the next couple weeks, which he might not, it's still going to go down as one of the just like historically greatest seasons we've ever seen. And for me, without this season is what kind of cements Salah as as one of the greats the Premier League has ever seen. And I think that that's not unfair to say. I think a lot of people were probably still on the fence before this season as far as he's one of the great players we've seen, but putting him in the absolute top tier of players, he'd only won one Premier League, right, etc. But like after this year, the performance he put on, and then ending it with another league title, which was not solely because of him, but I mean, a lot of it was because of
I
him.
mean, yeah,
I
if
think,
he wasn't on the
yeah,
team, I don't think they would be winning it. I don't think they would have been came close. But
yeah.
yeah, definitely. I mean, uh, Salah definitely cemented himself into a lot of people's at least into discussion for all time 11s. I know that we've debated a lot about
Yeah.
that, and who deserves where to go where, but he's definitely put himself in the conversation. Just if you like between the statistical individual performances he had this year, and also the fact that he picked up another Premier League trophy is a great boost to his resume.
And he signed a contract, so he helped his status with the Liverpool fans too.
Yep, 2 more years.
Is that what it is? 2 more years?
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting summer for Liverpool because there's even with all the success they've had, there's going to be a lot of question marks. Obviously, Bradley is probably going to be filling in at right back now. I'm not. I like him a lot as he still has a lot to grow in order to become at the level that Trent was at, and also he hasn't proven that he can stay fit. He's actually had a decent amount of injuries this year and stuff. So
Mm.
I would be happy and not. I would be worried if we went into the season and right back it wasn't addressed at all. Um, I think that we're getting linked with Frimpong pretty heavily, so that'd be pretty cool. The
Oh,
Dutchman,
Jeremy.
yes, and then left back Andy Robertson's not getting any younger. Another club legend. So probably, hopefully, signing Milos Kerkez, and then who knows, maybe even center back too, because Van Dijk's also not getting any younger, and we're gonna need to
Mm.
um, strengthen there. Hopefully, bring in his successor, and then obviously up front, Darwin and Jota have had their own issues this year, so probably looking for another
Am I getting
striker.
any younger?
Yeah.
No.
Well, they're not getting any younger. I guess no,
Nah, nah.
none of us are getting any younger, but yeah. So I mean, I think that we're going to see a lot of activity this year or this summer from Liverpool, and that's aligning with a lot of what the reliable reporters that I actually trust and stuff are saying.
Mm.
So it's going to be interesting to see what happens and how the other teams try to chase us as we try to defend our title next year.
Yeah. Who do you think's gonna? Who you most worried
And
about? Scared of?
it's still got to be City, I think.
City. Yeah.
Yeah. I think, I mean, this year, even this, they haven't
Oh
lost
my
a
gosh,
game.
my that's funny. I said City, and my phone is listening to me now because it thinks it said I said Siri.
Oh. Um, but this year they're actually quietly finishing the season very strong. And now that the league's gone and stuff, it doesn't, no one's really paying as much attention to that to it as much, but yeah, City I don't think have lost a game in like 2 months. So
Yeah.
yeah,
We'll have to do another, maybe when we do our, I know I did a little Salah tribute. I think at the end of the season, whenever we do our end of season recap, we got another, we got another all-time great. And in my opinion, even as a United fan, easily could make a case for the greatest midfielder in the Premier League ever leaving at the end of the season. So I'm gonna have to do another tribute
KDB.
to Mr. Kevin De Bruyne. Maybe he's not leaving the Prem. We don't know
Did you
where
see
he's
the
going.
rumors that Liverpool were going to sign him?
No way.
Yeah, but that was
No
shut
way.
down. It was shut down, but
Oh,
there were some
okay.
rumors because apparently when he was a kid, he said that he was a huge Liverpool fan, and so ever since then it's been like, oh man, what could have been? But he ended up playing for Chelsea and City instead of Liverpool. But
That
yeah,
would be crazy.
yeah, but he's probably going to go to Saudi or MLS and make a bunch of money and right off into the sunset. But yeah, KDB
Fair
definitely
enough.
deserves a tip of his cap or our
Tip of our
caps.
cap.
Um, we should do a yeah, we should do like a little awards episode or something like that. I think that'd be good.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he wouldn't win any for this season, but we'll give him we'll give him
Yeah.
it's,
He'll win the award for the uh farewell of the year or the departure of the year.
farewell. Yeah, that's a good one.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Yeah,
Um
yeah.
real quickly, let me hear your predictions for the Europa League final.
Oh, well, who's gonna play in it or who's gonna win?
Who's gonna win? We already know who's playing in it.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, obviously United versus Spurs. It's me versus our friends over at Tottenham Talk. Um, I mean, if you're forcing me to make a prediction, and I hate predicting that United will win things, but I probably, if I were to bet, if you were forcing me to bet money, I would probably bet more money on United than I would on Tottenham. And I don't really know why exactly. I mean, maybe it's just
It's because
like a
you're a fan
history
of
thing,
them.
right? No, but because I'm a fan of them, I usually don't like backing them, right? Because it's like
You've been
I
burnt.
just don't.
You've been burnt too much.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like keep your
You gotta
expectations low, but also
hedge
it's
your
like
bets.
hedge your bets, right? I win either way. Like either I win my prediction or I win because my team won, and I don't care about the prediction. But I would probably predict United. I don't know if it's just I mean, neither United nor Spurs have given any of us any reason to predict them to win. The only reason that anyone would predict one of these teams to win is because we know who they're playing against, and it's the other one of these teams, right? It's
Well, I
16
think
versus
Spurs have
17.
already beaten United like 3 or 4 times this year.
That is probably true. I don't know about 4 times. But yeah,
I think it
maybe
was
two or
three,
3 times.
at least three. I know that it was at least three. But
But so that could be something to take into consideration. I'm honestly probably just going based off of I've watched football for how long, and I've seen Tottenham get close to a lot of trophies, and and they've never won it. And United, at the end of the day, as bad as United have been this year and for the last, they've been bad for the last 10 plus years, and somehow they've still managed to either have good league finishes or win trophies, right? I think if we win a trophy this year, that'll be 3 years with a trophy running, and those have been three horrific years of performances. So I think I've just seen United do it more often, where they're like, yeah, they're doing badly, but big club
somehow
mentality.
they're in
We'll
this
pull
cup
up.
final,
We'll
so I guess we'll
yeah,
win
we'll
it.
fin. We'll win some trophy, right? It's the way
Yeah.
Eric Ten Hag kept his job last year, and I've never seen Tottenham do it. So maybe that's just the reason that I feel more confident.
Yeah. I mean, I'm gonna be pulling for Spurs for the fact that like, our buddy Clay has never seen Tottenham win a trophy and he has
Yeah,
been tormented for a lot of
his
our
whole life.
his whole life basically as a Spurs fan. So for him personally, I would like for him to see them win something. And also, I just think it'd be such irony if they won a trophy the same year that Harry Kane won his
Harry
first
Kane.
trophy. And it
Yeah,
can't, I mean, like he could have won a trophy at Spurs and stayed at Spurs I got a trophy the same year and probably ended up becoming the all-time greatest or all-time leading goal scorer in Premier League history. All these records and stuff. But now he won his first trophy this year. So I just think it's just destiny for Spurs to win. Um, and yeah, it's gonna be interesting because like you don't really. expect to see number what is it 17th 16th for 17th place in the Prem, and
for
one of
for a
them
Champions League, by the
and one of
way.
them, yeah, one
Whoever
of them is
wins
going to be
this
in the
goes.
Champions League next year.
So you're rooting for Spurs. Who are you predicting? Are you predicting Spurs?
Oh man, I don't know. Both these teams are so inconsistent that is like
Yeah.
almost impossible to predict. I guess like I know Spurs will create chances. I don't know like I know their defense will also give up chances, but it's also a cup final, so like usually during cup finals the game tightens up. Players are more cautious. I For some reason I'm going to be rooting for Spurs, but I think United might be able to pull it through. I'm going to say 1-1 and then a winner in extra time.
Yes. Oh, an extra time.
Yeah, so I guess 2-1 United is my prediction.
Okay. And you're probably thinking a little Mr. Big Game player Kobe Manu extra time, well, extra time winner, either him or Amad Diallo
Yeah, I was gonna
if
say
it's going to be
Amad Diallo is
United.
probably gonna be have the winner. I think Bruno will get on the score sheet. Bruno and Ahmad will be the two goal scorers for United, and then I think that Solanke will score for Tottenham.
Yeah, I like Solanke actually. I
So do
think he
I.
can he
Liverpool
can be
legend.
better.
He is.
Yeah, yeah. Him, yeah, him and
Him and Trent are on the
um,
same tier of Liverpool legends.
all right. Well, when is that? How long until the final?
Let me look real quick for us. Let's see.
You know what we should do? You know how some of these successful podcasts that are like
They do
same
the
level as us, live
watch
watch
along.
along.
May
Yeah, yeah.
21st. Why is it on a
What day of the week
Wednesday?
is it?
It's on a
Oh,
Wednesday.
yikes. Yikes. At 3 p.m. on a Wednesday. Man, that's not
I
the
guess the Europa League uh didn't care about
what jobs.
the Americans, American fans.
Yeah. Which fair enough. All right. Well, thanks for tuning in. Good good comment. I always sometimes we do these like single topic videos. Like I think the last two videos we did are like this Trent video and then the Hazard versus Salah video. And I always go into it thinking that it's like, oh, we're gonna do like a nice punchy video, like 10 to 20 minute debate. And then an hour and a half later, we're
Yeah,
we're
here we
we're
are.
rounding out the episode. Yeah. I guess we both just like to talk.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. Next episode will be here in a couple of weeks. Probably we'll do the Premier League wrap up. And yeah. See ya.